Wilkister, habari ya leo? Aha.
Good morning.
Aha, ana umeweka sura ya kazi. Good to see you. Mambo. How was your holiday?
Holiday was good. We celebrated the local heroes and the bigger ones, and of course God.
Kuna international?
Yes, kuna international heroes.
Kina nani ya?
Nigerians are on the streets and they're making us proud. So they are heroes in their own right.
By the way, you know, majamaa pia wameweza tata kuingia pale, and I think before you do that, wacha nipeane shoutouts kidogo, alafu nikirudi tuongee mambo ya dunia vile inaenda. Na tutaanzia pale Nigeria. Tujue kunaendaje lakini. Naona kuna jamaa wameamuka hapa asubuhi mapema. Titus Chumba anasema tuned in. Maria Skipper anasema morning. The Takola Santa Collins Mesoya anasema good morning. Jakama Senior anasema morning farm from 001. Cheriat Wesley Kipruta anasema morning guys. Cheriat from Eldoret. Bedian K anasema good morning Takola tuned in from Thika Kiambu. Watu wa Kiambu, habari ya asubuhi. Aaron Maina Mwangi anasema tuned. Onyekwa Kefa Wesley anasema Nyamakoroto Nyamira County in tuned in today. I'm among the first people. Alright, asante sana Onyekwa Kefa. One day Bonaya anasema good morning. Ukwa Isaac anasema tuned in from Finland. Good job bro. Asante sana Ukwa Isaac. Stabo anasema following. Sami Meli anasema tuko ndani. Ondari Kasiriba Kosma anasema number 6 na leo. Uko number 6 bro. Umeanguka uko number 15 huko. Jumba Ian Kipton anasema niko tuned in Adelaide, Australia. Watu wa the land down under Australia. Tunapenda zaidi. Thank you so much for always tuning in the morning. Starboy anasema tuned. Mike Tanui morning. Tarkwell. Unajua wakati Ngujiri alikuwa hapa alitupea jina mpya. Anasema tunaitwa Tarkwell. Alright. That is Mike Tanui. Good to see you. Mwita Mwangi anasema morning. Matthew Gibbets anasema good morning. Bitok logged in from Elbagon. Jerry Odis Okongo anasema good morning Taklas. Good morning to you. Lawrence Kigen Kiblagat. Good morning Taklas. Ndani nikiwa Isli. Lord Robert Mutai anasema good morning too. Bedian K naona ameamusha Lewi ni Thumbi, Mreithi wa Lucy, Collins Ajuang, Caroline Gatia, Margaret Kamau, James Boniface, Washira Makef Ndungu anasema let's tackle, come let's tackle. Tafadhali kila mtu amshe mtu. Ukifika pale amsha watu na ushare. Kama unafika hapa nimekupiga shout out na hujashare, ujue wewe ni criminal. Ronald Kimutanza anasema good morning sir, watching from Kisii. Asante sana. Onyingo akiwa today I'm among the first 10 people na ngoja hiyo credo sana. Julius anasema morning from Busia, Kenya. Bedian anasema happy birthday Elder Kiongo Karanja. Elder Kiongo Karanja, happy birthday from the tackle. Khalif Mohammed anasema morning from Nandi County. Kimton Sama locked into the tackle. Hashtag the tackle. Kent Chuba watching from Alabama. Hey, watu wa Alabama asante sana. Watu wa majuu. So tumeenda international. You're heroes. Anyway, Bedian Kia sama Naftali, Chebi, Vincent Chebi, let's join the tackle. Tafadhali amusha watu. Moyes hadi teacher anasema tuned in kabisa zima man well represented. Veronica Sang tuned in from Healthcare City Dubai. Kenya Mamode anasema I always follow you sir. Thank you. Bedian K. Amen. Thanks for the prayers. You're the bishop bwana. Kuna upako. Mwenge Wafula anasema tuned in from Mogadishu. Lil Koima all the way from Iten anasema good morning to tackle pray for Nigeria. Hashtag the answers. Namaz de Cruz anasema niko ndani nikiwa Nairobi. Alan Langata anasema good morning Lucia Akoleo. Lucia aliendeko pale Western lakini atarudi kabla wiki haijaisha. I think tutakuweko na yeye Monday. Lucia alikimbia nyumbani kidogo kwenda kuangalia mashujaa wake wa nyumbani lakini anarudi. And Oklima anasema tuned in from Kamakawa. Kangaru Maina anasema Gerald Bitok you are doing a good job. Thank you so much Kangara Maina. Thank you so much. Thank you Morene. Mohaya Van anasema good morning the tackle. That's Komora morning tuned in from Kitale as always. Watu wa Kitale na kuna mtu wenu hapa. Masibai Gideon anasema good morning. Julius Victor Kajiado, Walter Moriasi Motuko Moriasi tuned in from Kisii. Nasikia jana wa Kisii mumepewa huduma kadi. Anyway, Ngugi Gits anasema niko ndani. Darius Masai anasema live from Doha. Asante Moses Makosh anasema tuned in from Kitale. Mwenge Wafula good morning to tackle team. Peter Kibet Arab Coach anasema hello Bitok. Good morning to you Peter Arab Coach. Edwin Tuma anasema good morning watching from Lamu. QS Mwangi Kikuyi tuned in. Michael Keter morning Michael Ketere. Felix Kiptani Sirma sama Doha live. Haya, wacha tuanze kabla sijakuja kurudi kumaliza shoutouts kidogo. We need to go to Nigeria. The things that are happening in Nigeria is quite sad. And it's interesting that it's happening in the 21st Africa, where we're talking about human rights, we're talking about right to life, we're talking about progressing as a continent. It's quite sad. And for that reason, naomba for those people who don't know what actually happened in Nigeria. Yesterday, the military shot into protesters in a place in Abuja, Nigeria. Wakalima watu, and a lot of people are feared dead. Nigerians are people who have been uprising against the oppression going on in this country. So that we don't have the guts to stand up against this government. But anyway, kabla tujaenda sana kwa hiyo mambo, I would request that we take a minute of silence for the people of Nigeria. Kirudi hata wewe mwenye una comment afadhali chukua a minute of silence. When we come back tukuje tuelezee daktari atuambie what he thinks is happening in Nigeria. WILKISTER will also give us a short what's happening. 1 minute starts now. Alright, for the people of Nigeria, poleni sana kwa hiyo maneno ambayo iliendelea pale Nigeria, and I want to pick your mind on the same thing, Daktari, when we go to WILKISTER.
Thank you very much, Gerald. I think what is really going on in Nigeria is so many years of oppression. I think you must recall that Nigeria has had experiences of military coups. In fact, the current ruler, the current president, General Buhari, is a former military ruler. And we've had in the past, the use of the military, the use of the police to really, really oppress the citizenry. I think you recall in the past, the killing of very powerful activists in places like Ogoniland, such as Ken Saro-Wiwa and others. You've had crazy cases of terrorism, cases of kidnapping of girls. Hundreds and thousands of them up to now have not reappeared. And so we're dealing with a country where the security forces and the police in particular have gone amok for a very long time. And so citizens in Nigeria have said enough is enough, that they can no longer live with this reality. And I think what is also evident is that it's not just in Nigeria where we have police brutality visited on citizenry. We have this reality in our own sub-region, whether in Tanzania, if you follow, what is going on in relation to the Tanzanian general election campaign right now, the manner in which Tundu Lissu is being harassed, the manner in which his campaigns are being disrupted, the way citizens are being, pushed around. You go across the border, whether in Uganda, and you see what other leaders they are going through, and all the way back home here. I think really we cannot have democratic states if we do not democratize our security infrastructure. To the extent that security forces are not accountable to civilian authorities in a consistent, in a transparent manner, to that extent, we will still see this kind of oppression going on. And so what is going on in Nigeria on the part of citizenry is really commendable. Citizens must stand up against the oppression by the police, by the security forces, whether in Nigeria, in Tanzania, in Uganda, or in our own country, Kenya. And we cannot and we must not countenance a situation where it is the rule by force and terror, that is controlling the mind and the decisions, of our citizens.
All right. I want to pick your mind on the same thing, WILKISTER.
I think for me, it's more about us being human in the sense that...
Let's pull your mic closer. No.
It's for us being more human in the sense that when the police are handling people, can they handle people with a bit of dignity? Can they arrest someone or stop protesters with a bit of dignity? If you look at what is happening in Nigeria, it is really sad. And world over, I think that there's a fire catching on of citizens becoming more active in terms of how they participate in issues that are of national concern, that are really putting down, the citizenry. We had the Black Lives Matter, campaign. I think this really got people across the world thinking about how active citizenship can change the face of how leadership accounts to its people. And that is what has caught on in Nigeria. And even locally, I think there have been groups that are, advocating for or against police brutality. But what we've not seen is people outside of the civil society joining these groups. Because we see in Nigeria, we had even artists, the WILKISTERs of this world and everyone. But when these protests happen in Kenya, because they do happen, I know of campaigns over the coronavirus period that, young people are really advocating against police brutality. But when they went on the streets or when they presented their petitions, we did not really see people outside of the civil society or even the general citizenry joining them to say that we are adding our voice. I don't think in that regard that Kenyans are angry enough about how systems oppress us. So I think it is about time for us as Kenyans to catch on to this fire, because active citizenship is the way to go in terms of holding leadership accountable. Yeah.
All right. That's what do you think? Actually, you guys, if you say today let's undress and go to State House Road, we will be the first one to pull off the trouser on the sky. I think that is actually the essence of that's the issue with activism or active citizenry. That's where the problem at times is. So, daktari, a lot of people, we heard that first of all, kwanza kumon kwanza ndio tuanze kujua daktari ni nani. So I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself in a nutshell. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you come from? What are the things that you want to say in this country? What pushes you every morning to do the things that you do?
Thank you, Gerald, for the opportunity to be, at the tackle. And I think it's really a great program and a great engagement with our citizens. So my name is Abraham Korir Singoe, and I'm presently legal advisor in the Deputy President's office. That is Dr. Ruto's office. But just stepping back, obviously I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. My work over the last 15 years as an advocate have really revolved around championing the rights of marginalized communities. If you have been following my work, you will realize that my real passion is to fight oppression. This studio is in Kibra, which is one of the constituencies that I did a lot of work with the Nubian community, just across the road, a community that had been denied nationality for many years, a community that had been denied their land rights for many years. They still are denied land rights by and large. But I did defend this community to an extent where 90% of them right now do have identity cards and are able to, exercise their civil and political rights within our country, as well as their economic, social, and cultural rights. I also I also defended the Ogier community, which is this forest community in the Mau forest, and I filed a suit on their behalf, not just in this country, but also in using regional and international mechanisms, especially the African Commission and the African Court. And the recent pronouncement by the African Court to the effect that the Ogiek have land rights in relation to the Mau, I think represents some of the most important work that we have done. And a number of other communities that have represented. I can talk about the Enderoys, I can talk about the El Chamus and other communities, other marginalized communities that a lot of Kenyans really have no idea about. So in the context of working with marginalized communities, I came face to face with exclusion, with a sector of our society that no one knows much about, no cares much about. And in the context of, fighting for their inclusion, I realized that we needed to do more as a country to deal with social, political, and economic discrimination. And that's what continues to animate my work today. I mean, I work in government right now. I work for the Deputy President of the Republic, where part of the work I do is to, I do a lot of legislative work. I do work around intergovernmental relations, especially in relation to a body called the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, which is the body that negotiates issues of shareable revenue. So issues that you had recently around the formula by the Senate, are part of the issues that are discussed within the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council. The other work that I do revolves around accountability. I am the lead person within government on a program called the Open Government Partnership, where we bring together civil society, private sector, government and citizen groups around conversations around accountability and how we can use technology and citizen participation to open up by default all our systems, including procurement systems. And so that's just in a nutshell the kind of work that I do. And so I'm motivated by social justice, by inclusion, and by empowerment of people. I come from Kitale, that's where I was born and bred. The county of Trans Nzoia, the Corn County of Kenya, one of the counties that is really meant to be prosperous, but a county that is probably unrivaled in terms of poverty, in terms of ethnic balkanization, and in terms of disempowerment. And we're trying to do some work in Trans Nzoia to change that, that sad and sordid situation that the people are faced with. Yeah.
All right. So it would be safe to say you are a land rights activist.
Absolutely. I think I'm a land rights activist, but broadly, really, I'm a social justice activist. Yeah, because land rights is just one of the arenas in which we.
So are you trying to change things in Trans Nzoia, because you've said it is actually meant to be successful, but it's not. But you try to do something about it.
Yes. So I focused around the country previously, where I've worked with all these communities, but then I realized back at home, that there are serious cases of oppression there. Maize farmers are getting a raw deal, like Nigeria. I keep saying that Trans Nzoia experiences the same thing Nigeria experiences. Nigeria has oil, but the beneficiaries of oil resources reside in the capital in Abuja, and outside the country. So it experiences something called the resource curse, in the sense that the communities, the resource host communities of these oil resources are not getting a thing. In the same way, Trans Nzoia has a resource curse, because whereas we are the biggest producers of maize, there is not a single factory. There's no single milling factory in Trans Nzoia where maize is processed and value added. And so there are no jobs that are being created. There's no greater value, for the corn that these people have, and so in the end they get the least in terms of prices, from their produce. And so there is a real resource scarce situation as well, in Trans Nzoia.
All right. WILKISTER, someone was asking me yesterday, what is a youth development consultant? Munakorogea vijana simiti nini?
What youth development consultancy is, in my context, is I work with the young people, directly with youth, and sometimes through youth-serving organizations. And it involves researching and learning trends that young people between 18 to 35 go through, and then using that information now to help implement programs or strategies that directly target the young people. That is what it entails. Yeah. So for me, working in that space is a passion area. And a little backstory to where I started. My first year at the university, I volunteered at a political party. At that time, it didn't make sense to anyone, in my age group. But for me, it came from a place of wanting to change leadership and wanting to see better in how Kenya is governed, and even, hopefully spread it across Africa and the world. So that is where I started. So I've worked with political parties for about 5 years now. So I have great experience with that. I've been the executive director of a political party as well. I have also richly worked with civil society organizations, particularly ones dealing with governance and the ones targeting young people as their focus areas. So, yeah, that pretty much is it. Yeah.
That's what else you do. There's something also called Run for Office. What is it all about?
So Run for Office is new. It's a passion project of mine. As I said, I really love young people, and I want to see young people propelled to positions of leadership where they have the integrity enough to change the leadership of this nation. For what Run for Office is doing, it is poising young leaders in their diversity, ethnic minorities, young people living with disability, all young people between 18 to 35 to run for office. So we set you up to run for office. We give you a mini manifesto, we do your branding, we do a bit of your communication, and then that gives you a platform as a young person, including some merchandise that you can help young people campaign. And that platform does give a young person who's serious about running for office and winning a platform where you can actually present yourself as a credible candidate to run for any office in the country.
Okay. Yeah. So when are you setting up Singwe?
I'm slightly over 35.
Yeah, as long as kama hujafika hapo bado ni kijana. Hata niliona jana watu wa Mashujaa Day walikuwa wanacheza wanasema wao ni vijana. So you're never far from it.
But I also wish to mention that this is a passion project. So even the designers, the videographers, the photographers we're working with are well experienced people. So they are able to run your own campaign away from the young people's thing. So this is a passion project for us.
So we need to set up Singwe. Singwe, we are setting you up under the tackle. You're going to tackle your campaign. You're tackle your campaign. All right, that's brilliant, guys. Wacha nikimbize niangalie nipige shots kidogo kwa masalafu tukirudi tuangalie magazeti. Nini inaendelea kwenye magazeti siku ya leo. Berian K anasema Lilian. By the way, Berian K, I owe you airtime today. Ile kazi umefanyia tackle, I'll get you airtime today. Berian K anasema Lilian Kirero, come get informed by Taklas. FJ Boy anasema good morning Taklas. Francis Shegi anasema good morning, morning from Nairobi. Cherioti anasema niko ndani from JKI, ni baridi lakini tuko ndani ya show. Oe, ile baridi iko Nairobi leo akia nani sijui tutakaa namna gani. OJ's BMG jamaa wa Embakasi mwenyewe, yes, show on top. Asante. Jebora keeps Justin anasema good morning. Good morning to you. Lauren Tumba anasema good morning sir from Kiambu. Eric Kithuka anasema Eric watching from Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Walter Moriasi Mothuku anasema Kisii tuned in. Watu wa kwanza kupata huduma namba Kenya hii. Bor Josephat anasema good morning watching from Nairobi. Chepkoech anasema Kericho. Koriare Benai keeps good morning. Ondari Siriba kwa Saudi Arabia watch Saudi Arabia watching the tackle boy. Mother tongue influence. Leonard the captain anasema 036 na kuona kwa Inange wa anasema tuned in from Marmanet Laikipia. Korira Benai keeps morning tuned in from Shokimau. Bernard Smith, good morning Gerald. You're doing a great job watching from Kamsawar Elgeyo Marakwet. Asante sana. Thank you so much Bernard. Amos Kweja sema good morning watching from KCO. Eric Limo tunakungoja Moiben. Nafukuja kabisa. Wajua jamaa fagia area kidogo. We are coming. Eric awe Muriel sema picha na sauti safi kama pamba watching from Papua New Guinea. Thank you watu wa New Guinea. Asante Flames Lento sema following from Thika, I'm rotonated. Lebe Irene nasema tuned in from County 034. Keep it up bro. Coach Brian nasema Eldoret City ndio ao sisi. Good morning the tackle. Asante sana Coach Brian. Usiaba definitely good morning our people. Jackson Kipkoech anasema morning team from Kericho County. Victor Cheria anasema good morning the tackle. Naona Honorable Kiru anasema Jamge Daktari Singwe, you are loud and clear. We are following closely from Dallas, Texas. Umesalima kutoka maneno ni international. Yeah, you are going to kick CNN out of business. Dankano Juang Daktari anasema that's your friend. Anasema very exciting and great overview of abuse of police and prosecution to protect regimes. Karibu Daktari. Asante. Onyingo Akiafa anasema what is happening in Nigeria is really sad. Boss Ben Kebos anasema following from Rongena in Narok County. Jackie Yako anasema they need to completely dismantle SARS in Nigeria. Alright. John W. Karim anasema good morning dear. Taklas Kiptanui Ruben anasema and SARS hashtag Dennis Kibiwa Tsila kwa sababu is my fellow constituent. Sharp guy. Pass my regards. Umesalimia Violet Nafula anasema Kitale is well tuned. Henry Kimeli Kapinga anasema Kiingereza tupu from Abraham Singwe. I actually wanted to ask you where you got your English from because that is not our English. We need to sue you for being a white man in a black skin.
It's a lie. It's a lie.
And you're lucky Aki, sisi zingine inabidi tunauma ulimi kidogo ndio kazi ingie. Anabakiro anasema wakili, you should give a shot at gubernatorial seat in Trans Nzoia. You have what it takes to lead that county. Sote tuko pamoja. By the way, you need to think about that. Jana ulikani anasema Candy Talks bold panel, and I believe that we as Kenyans should take a bold approach to know and understand our rights. Kipkemech Alphonse Asingoe speaks American accent. Tataambia alitoa Pingereza. Ay. Mathai Arab Manena anasema morning Mombasa to collect. Mr. Ndoto, good morning from the tackle. Nasicha Miremba anasema tuned. Emmanuel Kipsang, yeah, I'm dude Mambo. And you know, dude in another place is a very rude name, but anyway, we'll take it for now because English is not our mouth. Alex Roni Biri anasema Kimungu locked in, say I to Abu Daktari, namtambua sana. David Kamasam, good morning, Team Tackle. Keep quiet. When one talk of working with Kenyans politicians, then we are all done. Or people come out with their own tune. All right. Wacha tukimpigwa magazeti kwa sababu tuwezi maliza hiyo maneno ya salamu. Salamu ni mingi. Tackle, watu wanapenda salamu sana. Najua lakini wamalizi kusema kwamba ujumbe ni kwamba kuvunjika kwa mwiko si mwisho wa upishi. The Standard nasema we did it. Young innovators tell their secret to success. Ni mambo ambayo ilikuwa imefanyika juzi. Nasema the gist of the story. Standard 9 na kwanga imeniangusha. Anyway, tuende kwanza People Daily. People Daily nasema all set for BBI. Kuna picha pale juu ya President Uhuru Kenyatta na Raila Odinga na naibu wa rais, Deputy President. President Uhuru Kenyatta with his Deputy William Ruto inside and political party leaders from left, Moses Wetangula, Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Raila Odinga during yesterday's Mashujaa Day celebrations at Gusii Stadium in Kisii County. Pale pia inasema a case for change. President Uhuru uses celebrations to rally support for constitutional reforms. Says it would be a tragedy if changes are not made before the general elections, as he takes a swipe at his Deputy Ruto for suggesting the envisaged law and amendments are geared at creating positions for certain people. Right? Kama gloves zimeanza kutolewa. Naona pia pale jinsi class 8 grade 4 assessment kicks off today. Ilikuwa imesukumwa jana kwa sababu ya Mashujaa Day. Kimanzi exits after bitter fallout. Pale Harambee Stars amechomoka, that is the coach. Jacob Coast Mule set for surprise return as Harambee Stars tactician, that is Kimanzi. As Kimanzi gets out. Number page 2 inasema K creates on space for insaturated beer market. Ulevi Kenya hii. Anasema Kinyanjui threatens to withdraw pale chini page inasema pia Kinyanjui threatens to withdraw Nakuru bar licenses over COVID rules. Hiyo ni mambo ya Nakuru pale, wanasema Governor Lee Kinyanjui is considering withdrawing bar licenses kwa sababu ya corona ambayo imeanza kusambaa. Pale pia kuna na story mawaki stories pale People Daily. Kipsigis Starlight suffering justice in the lands colonial senators. Mambo ya shamba pia. I'm seeing the Kericho South Rift is actually leading in agitation for repossessing of land that is being held by multinationals. Page 4 ni pale some president rally support for BBI to end poll chaos. Uhuru First Lady pioneer ADUMA number holders. Boy, ADUMA number. Ingia na shatu natoka na suti. Residents turn up in large numbers to attend Maiden and some national celebration in Kisii. Page number 6 inasema there is no country without history, there is no history without heroes. Number 7 page 7 some leaders one of COVID wave of COVID appeal for caution. Wanasema muanze kurudiana na mambo ya mask na sanitizing. I think Kenyans have stopped washing hands. A BBI report ready to be released anytime. I don't know if we are ready. Page 8 inasema patriotism, goodwill and merrymaking as Kenyans strive to honor heroes. Uko ni page 8 ya People Daily, na page 9 covers the event yesterday in Kisii. Pale na page 10 ni mambo ya editorial na editorial sana sidhani kama ni muhimu, lakini kuna mahali pale unsung theater hero with will of steel. President celebrates youth for exemplary innovations. Pale mambo ya theater pia ambayo yalifanyika pale, niliona kuna funduki imetengenezwa Kenya na kuna a hearth mover ya wanajeshi. Tuende kwa People Daily, Daily Nation. Nasema Duma secrets of magic number. Fears over COVID cases in school wakati shule zinafunguliwa. Inasema at least 2 cases of COVID-19 have been confirmed in schools a week after basic education institutions partially reopened, casting doubt on plans for full resumption of in-person learning. Pale pia kuna Avi decision stirs up controversy in LSK chairman Nelson Avi defends the decision to sack the society CEO. He says 9 council members who have opposed the action are being insincere. Pale chini pia inasema it is President Kenyatta and First Lady Margaret Kenyatta yesterday received their cards, but the rest of Kenyans will wait until December to receive document that will be primary source of identification. My ID zenu zitaanza kutupwa, yangu pia imezeeka, naona nitaanza kuitupa mapema nikingoja huduma namba. What missing Tika Dreader told mother. Deb Murray told Uz weighed him down. I think in mambo ya that is a lifestyle. Juma votes to bounce back. Mada MP to take plea tomorrow. Wakili atatuambia kunani pale Mombasa kwa Aisha Juma. My mother's death has taught me some vital lessons in life. Hiyo ni page 2. Page 3, uru to you to deliver, follow your dreams. Tuende kwa maneno ya BBI kwanza. Mko tayari kwa BBI Sing'oe? Are you ready for BBI?
Well, I think let's just say that at this point in time, just the way His Excellency the Deputy President said, was that he's ready for a robust national conversation that is inclusive. I think part of the challenge with BBI is the manner in which it has been treated as top state secret. And the real question is, why the secrecy? The Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, as you know, was arrived at after such a comprehensive engagement of the public that it was a process that ran for years. Every provision was scrutinized and people contested each of these provisions. And in the end, we gave to ourselves a constitution that we thought that by and large, it represented our aspirations. And those who opposed it. But once we had secured the constitution as supported by the majority, we all embraced it. And so the problem with the manner in which BBI process is being pursued is that, number one, it's exclusive. It appears to be only a project of the chosen few. Secondly, the people have not really been consulted. If you look at the so-called consultation meetings, they were all choreographed. They were all sessions that involved chiefs, their assistants, headmen, etc. So it's all a rigged participation process in a way that is completely incompatible with the ethos of our constitution, which talks about public participation. And so while we do not actually know the contents thereof, we are saying that we cannot endorse an outcome whose process is tainted. An outcome is as strong as a process that has given rise to it. And so the process, the BBI process so far, as we have seen it, has been rigged, it's been manipulated, it's been exclusive, and therefore we worry that the outcome thereof will not really be about engendering the interests of Kenyans. It will not be about safeguarding our rights further. It will not be about including or expanding the space for women and young people. And so we cannot really say much beyond the fact that we question the way in which the process has been structured, and therefore we will wait for whatever outcome it is and then deal with it when we have it on the table.
So you're not ready, in short.
I don't think the issue is being ready. I think the issue is, we really don't know.
Well, what it's all about.
And it's extremely unfair to impose this on Kenyans, because it's something that is imposed from the top without real regard to what the felt needs of Kenyans at this point in time is. Because the point is that Kenyans are going through a great deal of challenge right now. Livelihoods have been eviscerated by the COVID, pandemic. Our economy is tanking. Hundreds and thousands of young people are without jobs. And the argument really is this a do or die moment? So on one hand, there is an argument that, yes, it is a do or die moment. Because if we do not fix our electoral system, then we are bound to have instability. But so if you do want to fix the electoral system, why is it so difficult then to include? Why is it so difficult to design a process that can begin to engender trust from the word go? All right? Why do you want to have winners and losers in a context that is supposed to fix a problem, a national problem, so to speak? So yes, we are ready, but we just feel that it's an extremely unfair, playing field right now.
That's your argument.
Yep.
All right, Wilkister, juzi PS Kivicho amesema ya kwamba hii kitu mtakula kama dawa ya polio. Do you think we have a constitutional moment in this country?
First of all, there's this word in Luo that say it's called cargo. When a kid refuses to drink their porridge, you have to hold them like this and hold their nose so that the only option they have is to drink whatever you put in their mouth, right? To swallow it. And I feel that is what they are doing to Kenyans with the BBI. I do agree that public participation is very, very important for the citizenry, and particularly for the young people who form the bulk majority of the citizenry at this point. Looking at the Open Government Partnership, where he says it comes from, public participation is one of the really, really important issues in there. And for Kenya to be a signatory to that and not even adhere to things that it signs itself onto, first of all, it's very, very problematic. That said, it doesn't mean that BBI is here and we should reject whatever comes of it. I have participated in the processes to give some of the recommendations that came from young people, and also I also sat with women to also front, recommendations for that will support women. We are also seeing some of the things coming out, like the new constituencies that now senators may, run for a woman and a male representative, and we may actually have a 50-50 Senate, and that's one of the gains we have to see in there. So for me, it doesn't mean that in as much as this is not a bottom-up approach, because BBI really, in earnest, was created by the leaders, for the leaders, but now being given to Mwananchi as their thing. That is not the truth, right? So I think there are things that were noble in terms of what this BBI was addressing: ethnic majoritarianism, the poor representation in parliament for minority groups, strengthening devolution, the Mtuwetu mentality, but also in terms of even strengthening devolution while creating another tier of inefficiency with the regional governments. We are forgetting that down where devolution is happening with the county governments, there's clanism going on. So are we creating more problems, or are we solving problems that we have? So I think for every solution they're trying to create, there's a problem that has not been fixed yet. And I feel that is what we really need to address. Yeah.
But even on the same thing, Wilkister, talking about the same thing. How realistic is it? Because we are talking about a country that's struggling with loans. It's struggling with funding its exchequer. It's struggling with funding its projects. It's struggling with even paying salaries. As we speak today, county workers are yet to receive salaries. Even when you talk about creating more seats in the BBI to achieve an affirmative action in a place where democracy takes charge, what sense would it make to add, let's say, 40 senators to carry in for the women? Is it? Do you think it's realistic enough? Even as you talk about all these amendments and all these things that you want to fill in, how realistic do you think it is? You as a woman, yes, you might say, all right, we are going to be happy we'll have 40 seats for the women. But the question is, does it fix the country? And how realistic is it? At a place we are struggling with loans. The other day, Anko ametoka kuomba loan ingine 180 billion from France to come and fund. Actually, I think there is a money that was released with the counties, because it's until then that he said, okay, guys, I'm committing. We might talk about all these things that we want to see in this country, but how realistic and objective is that discussion?
In a sense, there is a way it's fixing problems with the country and giving more positions to women and having them actually run for office, because the women legislators who have been nominated to these seats will tell you they do not have the same voice or legitimacy that the other people who've come in through the ballot have. So for me to have women run and now reduce the nomination seats, it's a win. It's a win for the women, it's a win for the nation, because now women will be running for office as people, really would like to see. And I have argued before in other fora that BBI is not solving the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue for Kenyans, as Dr. here had said, is livelihoods. How can I put food on my table? Where will I sleep tonight? Can I go to school? Can I access healthcare? Can I, the basic things. And that is what Kenyans are asking for. But as I had said earlier, this process has been a top-down approach. And there's a problem with that, especially when you're sitting at a place of, what is this word? At a place where you're advantaged in a way. You do not see what it's like having an out-of-touch communication with the vast majority of the population. Because you're talking about positions mostly for the top guys, and you're forgetting that Mama Mboga just wants to sell her mboga. She wants people to buy. The local shopkeeper just wants their business to survive. The young person needs employment opportunities, and everyone just wants to thrive within the economy. So for me, and I don't mince my words when I say livelihoods is very important, and the BBI may not be addressing that directly, but there are issues that are also important that the BBI is addressing.
All right. Dr. Adi, we are talking about 13 regional governments, and as are going to come up, we are talking about all these assets that needs to be created. And the question is, what are the fundamental problems that Kenyans have? We're talking about land, we're talking about resource conflicts and all that. I mean, when you talk about reports in this country, for how long are you going to be fed with reports? We have the Ndungu land report lying there. We have the Waki report. We have all these reports. We have the TJRC report, which has not been implemented. When we talk about packaging a report in the name of BBI that's going to bring continuous changes, we talk about creating more seats and expanding the government. At what cost is it to the Kenyan? And do you feel it has the vibe of the common mwananchi? What are really the fundamental problems in this country?
Yeah, no, I think... I think listening to what my sister is talking about, I think is actually quite illuminating. But suffice it to say that what are the major problems Kenyans face? What are the real issues? And is BBI going to address these issues? So number one, the issue of inclusion and the issue of dealing with ethnic belonging. How do you deal with ethnic belonging by giving positions to 3 or 4, 5, elites from a particular community? If anything, what you do is you entrench ethnicity. You make ethnicity the organizing principle of our politics. As a country, we need to be moving away from organizing based on tribes, on ethnicity, on religion. We need to be organizing around policies, around around programs, around ideology, around what is best for Kenya, what is the best vision, around competing visions. That is what we need to be organizing around. But what BBI is doing, apparently, if that is that is the view, it will serve to entrench ethnicity. We will have ethnic hegemons, ethnic chiefs, whom all of us as citizens will be owning allegiance. They will be the gatekeepers. They will control our lives, so that if they don't open the door, you cannot enter. So we are creating more barriers to participation if that is the model of leadership that we think that we want to embody. The other issue really is like you said, and like ADUMA says, it's the economy. How do we expand this economy? Do we expand it by creating, more bureaucracy? What is our thinking around, fiscal discipline? What is our thinking around corruption? At both the national and the county level, what is our thinking around efficiency? Is BBI addressing these issues? I do not know, because I haven't seen any document, at all. And then lastly, this issue around competition. How do we manage political competition? How do we de-risk our politics? And I think there are a range of things that one can do around building resilient institutions, building confidence around these institutions, so that whatever decisions they render would be decisions that the citizens can look at and say, I trust this institution, and therefore I'm willing to go by the decision they have arrived at. So we do not necessarily fix our politics or our political competition by saying, let's have everybody at the table, because we cannot afford that. It's completely not possible.
Who is everybody, by the way?
Who is everybody? A country as huge as the United States
because everybody is 50 million people.
Exactly. A country as huge as the United States of America has only 2 major political parties. It has all these federations, obviously. All right. So really, what you need is robust, powerful political parties that can mobilize a movement behind them. It's backed by an ideology. It has very clear structures. What we are seeing is a situation where political parties are being destroyed and dismembered every day under the current constitution. Is BBI going to address this? We're dealing with political culture issues, which no constitution can be able to fix. And then lastly, the issue of devolution. I mean, how do you imagine you're going to increase shareable revenue to 35%? And yet right now, even the 15% that is mandated by the Constitution
is a problem.
Is a problem. Okay? All right? In any event, if we wanted to increase shareable revenue to 35, nothing stops the government from doing that under the current framework, because all we have in the Constitution is that it's a minimum of 15%. So government can go all the way to 30% if it so wished, based on availability of resources. We have never had resources to even meet the 15% threshold. How are we expected, to find resources to be able to meet the 35% threshold? So we are making promises that are not really backed by evidence. They are not backed by science. They are not backed by fiscal realities. They are political. They are sweeteners, which at the end of the day will hit an implementation brick wall as soon as it is adopted. What BBI appears to be is merely a stage to mobilize our politics, and will have very little in terms of qualitative returns, to Kenyans.
All right. WILKISTER, you work in the youth space. Let's talk about promises. Dr. mentioned something about promises. And you've been promised that once BBI passes, the youth will get jobs. You see that a policy space where you talk about policy issues for young people, getting employment and all that. We have a big 4 agenda that's already stalled. One of the wing was manufacturing, which I feel would actually create a lot of opportunities for young people, because about creating jobs, creating spaces where the young people can work. You see that a space where youth development consultant. Are you also part of do you think it's realistic? Because the Kenya's problem, do you think you're going to fix jobs? You're going to get us jobs in a document? What's your feeling as a young person in terms of what the vision and visions for young people in the BBR?
If I drop all my titles and speak as a youth of Kenya, I am disappointed greatly. I know of a friend of mine, we went to university together. He's now selling boiled eggs. He has a master's degree. Right? And someone even ran his story because it was so sad to see him selling boiled eggs in a bucket. We've been promised jobs since time immemorial. I think it's any leader who wants to vie for office will tell young people that I'll give you jobs. The Big 4 agenda was noble in the sense that all the areas where the activity was going to be manufacturing, housing, and all that. These were places where potentially young people could find employment. And it is sad. It is very sad how we politicize things that are supposed to give benefit to the Mwananchi. BBI right now looks like an organizing tool for 2022. The short-termism of our leaders is disturbing. And for someone else to stand and talk about them wanting to give jobs through the BBI, which they even promised in their manifesto before the BBI, it is misplaced, it is wrong, and it is a disservice to the young people of this country. A young person.
That was a very emotional submission. Let's talk about democracy, Daktari. From the president's speech yesterday, he was almost victimizing democracy. Like this, I feel that he feels because political competition is based from a democratic space. Multipartyism is what we fought for early in the 90s. And there seems to be a feeling that, and even if you see what is happening right now, we're almost borrowing a leaf from China. We want to create one big party, one big ball where everyone dances in it. Is it a reverse of democratic spaces? When you also look at the structure of leadership, they're saying they're going to have a supreme president who's going to appoint his vice president, prime minister, and all that. Let's look at it this way. As we speak, we're having problems with the president and his deputy who are elected on a ticket. What is the danger in terms of the democratic maturity of a country when you talk about having a president who appoints his juniors, and they can actually decide to fire them. And they can say and tell him, don't come to work tomorrow. Let's look at multi-party democracy, because I think that is where we've gotten our feel as a country. As speaking, the ruling party Jubilee has collapsed into opposition. They are in bed together. We have a Jubilee and NASA thing, and it looks like even Jubilee is being swallowed by ODM. When you look at it that way, and you read the vibe around the president with the way he was speaking, because for me, I think I felt like he was telling us that multi-party democracy, which is the basis of it, because Kenya is a very competitive country in terms of politics, very competitive. It's a very competitive space in terms of where you want to get to and how you are going to get there. It's a very competitive process. The president was giving us a feel of, guys, the problem that you have in this country is politics, and it's the politics of sense of multi-party democracy, having several parties looking for the same thing. And when you talk about winner not taking all, means let's all be in one basket, let's eat together. What does it mean for democracy? Because the space of democracy is an opposition and a place of government.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gerald. I think you're completely right. Kenyans, fought and struggled. Many lost their lives in order to secure our multi-party state. Back then in 1990s, Kenyans were constantly on the streets agitating, for a political voice, an alternative political voice, because up until that time, you could only articulate, you could only be heard, if you were in one hegemonic national party, called KANU. Kenyans refused and repudiated that vision, that unilinear, unilateral, singular, voice by which, they were ruled and controlled. Kenyans believed that in their diversity, whether cultural or political, they could all contribute to the pot, of decision making and enrich decision making. And therefore, in the 2010 Constitution, if you read Article 4, this is a fundamental principle of our Constitution that declares our republic. It declares that Kenya is a sovereign republic, goes ahead and says Kenya shall be a multi-party democratic state founded on national values. And I can tell you for free, Gerald, this Article 4 is one of those provisions of our Constitution that you really cannot amend. There is no way Kenya is going back into a single party state or a two-party state. Kenyans are so diverse. Kenyans want to articulate their views, their interests, their challenges. They want to canvass their aspirations, using different political parties, and that is something that Kenyans are not going to countenance at all. And so I do not want to believe that the president was well advised to make the case for a reversion of our multi-party character. We will not move in the direction of Uganda. We will not move in the direction of Tanzania, because we're a different country. I think if there's something Kenyans love, it is their freedom. They love their freedom even more than their food. You'd rather deny Kenyans food, but let them speak, let them engage, let them tell you what their perspective is. And so you cannot shut down the democratic space, whether in political parties, whether through the media. And we are seeing the same trend as well, where the media has been, it's basically been captured. So that people with divergent views, you had the other day in K24, where a panelist was locked out because it was perceived that what he was going to tell Kenyans were going to be views that ran counter to the views of the owners of the station. And so Kenyans love and cherish and honor and will die for their freedoms, especially, the right to express themselves, the right to assemble, the right to vote into office, their leaders, etc., etc. And that is something that Kenyans will not compromise on. Yeah.
On the same thing, since you sit the place where you interact with the deputy president, you advise him. I'm sure you've even advised him this morning. Yesterday's events at Mashujaa Day in Gusii Stadium, there was almost a play out of an almost direct disagreement with the president and his deputy on the issues of Raila first came and told us reggae is here, reggae did not stop, he took a break and he's going to come back. The president came in and said that I hope what he was talking about Baba is going to, the reggae is going to be inclusive. And the president seems to sharply disagree with his deputy on what WIBIA is all about. The deputy president has come out every other time and said that he's going to create positions for the big bosses up there, but not for the people. And the president came out yesterday sharply in a statement saying that it's not about creating positions, in a manner that was almost a feeling that he was directly disagreeing with his deputy. People have argued that what does the DP has to lose? We have BBI, create bigger seats, pull in every Tom, Dick and Harry and say let's form a government. What's happening?
See, this is a problem. I think the DP is really a believer in inclusive democracy. Number one, he's also a believer in our constitution. He holds the view that if we want to amend the constitution, there are ways of doing it. You can initiate a popular process, or you can do it by way of parliament. If you want to overhaul the constitution the way we did in relation to the constitution that was succeeded by the 2010 Katiba, you have to form an all-inclusive body to do that. Now, none of those processes have been triggered to date, okay? And so, basically, if you had the emphasis of the DP, it has always been about, if we must amend this constitution, let us amend it in a way that serves the interests of the guys down there, not the guys up there, because the guys who are high, the guys who are in power, the rich, the wealthy, those guys can pretty much take care of themselves. The people who need constitutional protection, and whose rights need to be even more safeguarded are the Wanjikos of our country. They are the Odhiambos of our country. They are the Nafulas of our country. Those are the people that need to be protected. And so if we are amending the constitution in a way that enriches the experience of life on the part of these people, so be it. But if we are in fact amending the constitution in order to even entrench, chieftaincy, and the political ownership on the part of certain individuals, I think that is something that the deputy president would be opposed to. Yeah.
All right. As we move, before we move to the next topic, WILKISTER, the people who are selling us unity are not united. Even in body, in spirit, and in every manner. Yesterday it was almost evident. Even the way they're dancing, they don't feel like they want to dance closer to each other. That's the political class, ambao wako pale juu. And they're telling us, guys, we are coming, we're bringing a document that's going to unite you. Don't you think we need a BBI, first of all, for the politicians before you get to the wananchi?
That's an interesting view. I think we are in a free space where we can express ourselves as we wish to. And the Constitution accords us that free space. For that matter, agreeing or disagreeing with something is okay. And at no point, unless maybe you're dealing with condors, will you have people agreeing 100%.
Some have actually agreed to be cows. Maybe condor is even...
It's condors because condors are stupid. So I choose that. So unless you have a room full of condors like that and you present something, then you'll have everyone say yes. But when you have a room full of thinkers, you will have people who will have divergent views, and that's okay. And I also want to comment on the multi-party democracy issue. There's a disconnect between our political organizing and our political parties. Our political organizing is ethno-regional. Our political parties purport to align with ideology. Case in study. An example is we had the Green Party. Following Michael Harvey, Nelson Harvey, to drink tea in Parliament.
They said we had just come to say hi.
The Green Party, from its name alone, already shows that they advocate for the environment, things around climate change and all that. So what was their space in advocating for whatever they were going to push with Nelson Harvey in Parliament? You see, there's a disconnect between what they purport to believe and what they're doing. We have parties that, are for the labor movements or support workers' rights. Do we even hear their voices anywhere? So there's a big problem between our political organizing and our political parties. And I think that's where we need to start changing so that we harmonize the two and define what our politics looks like. Because now it's a very confused space. And I don't know how the register of political parties can come in actually and make this a reality that if this is what you go by, then they hold you to account in the sense that you say you're a social democrat, then can you act like one? And for me, this is a message to all the political parties. What you propel, the ideology you believe in, the issues you believe in, let us see that in the politic of the day. Because we can't keep having our leaders just churning out abuse and, hate speech and all that. We need to see political parties actually championing issues in national papers and policy, not making the noise that we're seeing political parties making. And also in terms of the president's remarks and the inclusive reggae conversation, that is open. Kenyans want to have an inclusive conversation. The problem is we started the wrong way. So if this will go right, we do not know. But one thing that is also dangerous that is coming from this conversation is weaponizing poverty. Imagine a situation whereby you leave your house, Ngong or wherever, you have to pass through Kibra and get to Kibra and people tell you can't drive your car past here. And they take your car and they strip you of all you're wearing.
So that is now Nasla and Dynasty.
That is the kind of war we are trying to introduce in the BBI conversation that is going to hurt us as Kenyans. So let us avoid the class issue because it's going to create something that we might never recover from as a people. Right.
All right. Mambo habari ndio hiyo. Nasikia. Haya. Daktari, kwa nini tunapewa huduma namba kama narcotic? Nasikia hakuna, kuna mtu ako naye, tumetoa kidogo tuliona rais aliingia na shati ametoka na suti. What's going on with this huduma number then?
I think it has a similar problem as as BBI actually. Because if you look at its origins, it was introduced to Kenyans in a very stealth fashion. There was no education that preceded it. And therefore, there's a cloud of suspicion that surrounds what Huduma number is. Essentially, Huduma number is meant to be, these, sophisticated technology-enabled personal identifier system and number, that enables citizens to access services from government. And it's supposed to replace all your other documents, I believe, except, your passport. It has, because it's technology enabled, they collect a lot of data from the citizens, including biometric data. And the number one problem has always been the privacy of this data and the security of this data. To what extent is it secure? To what extent will that data be manipulated? Can that data be sold? Can it be monetized? To third parties, and so this is a system that was introduced in India, and for 10 years there was a lot of agitation against it, and the Indian government, when it introduced the Aadhaar number, it's called the Aadhaar number in India, was challenged to put in place measures to ensure that, number one, that personal privacy is protected. That number two, people who don't even have biometric features, like persons with disability, and persons who are already excluded through other identification processes, because you need an ID card, for example, in order to have, Huduma number. And if you don't have an ID card, that means you can't have it. So already those people are marginalized, like I was talking about the Nubians earlier on and people in northern Kenya. So it can also serve to even entrench exclusion further. And so in India, the system was challenged until right now it's working, more or less at about 50 or 60%. And the promise that it had been, that had been made, which was that once you have the Aadhaar number in India, you know, you will get services efficiently from government, etc., like cash transfers, because government will know where the old people are, who they are, their telephone numbers, and at a touch of a button, they'll be able to send, to remit money, because this system is also linked to banks, etc. So the challenges around this system are really around privacy and data security, because the intention is to have the Huduma number servers and their infrastructure linked and operable with banks, with all sorts of other institutions, and that in itself can improve efficiency, but it really it introduces massive surveillance. You know, the challenge is, people's phones are already not as safe. People argue, that their phones are surveilled upon, that their conversations are listened to. But now, in addition to that, when you have a number like Huduma number, it becomes even now more possible, for everything that you do to become, you lose a sense of privacy. The constitutional right to privacy is pretty much lost at that point in time. And so people are a bit worried, people are anxious, and what is required is, again, a robust conversation, because for people to give up their rights, they need to understand that this is actually for the greater good. But the question is Huduma number for the greater good? And to the extent that people don't have the information necessary to mitigate their doubts, there is a general feeling that this is a nefarious tool that might be used for for one or two other nefarious purposes.
On the same thing on class, your boss, Deputy President, has actually been criticized for selling the class disconnect, between the hustlers and this study also came up with the same statement at Guse Stadium, where you're talking about, you were telling the president that the people who matter are the guys who are walking in, going to Mujengo, watchmen, and all that. Wilkister has pointed out something that's quite interesting, because conversations in politics, narratives really sell, and they're very emotional. Politics is very emotional. What would it get to a point where you're coming here in the upmarket, and you need to pass through where hustlers are, and the hustlers are seeing you as a threat to their existence? What does that make you feel? The point when you're talking about uniting people, then do we separate the rich from the poor? And then where will the rich coexist? Because the poor are just across. In Karen, Kibera is called the lower Karen. I mean, where do you pass through as a dynasty?
I think there is a bit of a misunderstanding in terms of what this narrative is really all about. I think number one is, it's not about the rich and the poor, because there are rich hustlers. There are people, because the idea of a hustler is that these are people who have struggled through life and been able to make it. They've been able to transition from one level to another. You start as a border rider, suddenly, because of your entrepreneurship, you have 2 or 3 borders, you buy a matatu, and then you build a house. All right? So you become economically independent. But that doesn't mean that you cease to be a hustler. So it's not really a class, it's not a class conversation. It's a conversation around dignity. Because these people, I think for a long time, we have wanted to render certain sections of our society invisible. We have made the poor such an inconvenient truth that we do not want to discuss their issues. We do not appreciate them. We do not dignify their livelihood. And so what the Deputy President is trying to do is to say, listen, there are people in this country whose livelihoods we need to acknowledge, we need to spotlight. We need to think around, how can we organize these livelihoods? How can we give them legal predictability and legal protection? A person on Gong Road here who was selling, in a small kiosk, one morning woke up and that kiosk was not there, because they don't have legal protection over the property, the little property that they have. How can that person be able to advance themselves? And so what this narrative is trying to introduce into our conversation is a conversation around, number one, dignity, and that it doesn't really matter where you start. you can always progress. Number two, it's equal opportunity. That, if you're giving property protection to the guy who owns 1,000 acres, you should be able to give property protection to a kiosk owner. All right? You should be able to accord them equal protection. Number three, what is the role of government in that respect? The role of government is to get out of, the way and to allow and to be facilitative, of these sectors, of our economy. And so it is not, we have hustlers in Karen, we have hustlers in Runda, but we also have hustlers in Kibera and Kawangware and in other places. That's what this conversation really is all about. It's about the opportunity for social mobility, socio-economic mobility, and socio-economic progress for all. It's about, it's really about inclusion or economic inclusion for all. Yeah.
The same criticism has been his agenda, or his initiative of actually distributing things like wheelbarrows and other things that have been criticized largely. Do you feel it's part of an economic empowerment project in terms of raising the atlas to the dynasty quote level? Do we rove around policy, or we talk about issue, because I think that has come also under criticism? And I would want you to speak for it.
I think you need to understand it for what it is. It goes to this very issue I was talking about, the fact that there are sectors of our economy that we so look down upon. They are so denigrated that the guys who are doing that kind of activity are considered nobodies. They should not step anywhere close to power, anywhere close to authority. They should be somewhere far off from our eyes, from the glare of cameras, etc., etc. But what the Deputy President is saying is, come, let's have a conversation. Let's understand what is it that we can do as government, to make what you're doing produce for you and for your families even more. That's what it is about. So don't look at the wheelbarrow simplistically. It's really just a metaphor and a symbol for for an economic,
for a class,
not a class, for an economic
activity,
an economic activity.
It could like be a farmer. Yes, it could give you a djembe.
Absolutely, it can give you a djembe. Does that emphasize class? It empowers you.
I really beg to disagree.
I saw that coming.
I beg to disagree that this is an economic. The Deputy President, where he sits, has authority to implement this in policy. We had all these funds, the Youth Development Fund, the Women Enterprise Fund, and all that. That is why those funds were created, to do the wheelbarrows that the Deputy President right now is doing. And it is timely for him to just realize today that there are Kenyans who are hustlers. All his years in leadership, has he never seen Kenyans who are hustlers? Why is it important for him to only purport to have that narrative at this point in time, when he sits at a place of authority and can actually mend the things that we're having a problem with?
You know how many cuckoos is given out to women since, I don't know, like 20 years ago?
The thing is not the chicken. It is not the chicken.
So chicken sellers are not hustlers?
Chicken sellers are, everyone is a hustler in their own right.
There you go.
And that is not the conversation we should be having. The Deputy President has power enough to have these things in policy and make them sustainable over the long term. So this reactionary approaches like giving wheelbarrows.
So you're talking about sustainability. I want to understand you.
This guy, let me tell you, he is not acting for government. I will not mince my words. He is acting for himself. If he was acting for government and the betterment of the people, there would be sustainability to whatever he's doing in terms of economic empowerment.
Okay, so your problem is sustainability.
My problem is he's not honest.
Even the same question, because I actually saw you are going to disagree. I could see the vibe getting into you. But anyway, the thing is, let me ask, even as we argue about sustainability and the position of the deputy president, all these guys who are actually fighting him as well sit in places where they can make decisions. If you're saying today I should not give you a spoon, I should come with a fork and say, gentlemen, this guy is very bad. He has given you a spoon, and but actually you can have this soup with a fork. or he has given you a spoon, you can have this yam with a fork. Why is it that we are not seeing alternative solutions being flown in? Because criticism, at the end of the day, without solutions, does not make sense. Because it's only at this point we're talking about wheelbarrows that we have now got awoken up to actually the responsibility of government. This government has been here for the last 8 years. We've not questioned its policies. We've not questioned the way it implements things. Every other person who is on this podium are talking about a document. And that is why I want you to fall in, WILKISTER, because let's talk about policy and document. I mean, all right, you're saying, okay, guys, this guy should not be giving wheelbarrows, but now we are coming with BBI. On this space as we speak, I would rather go home, by the way, to be very honest, as a person, I would rather go home with a wheelbarrow than go home with BBI, because, I mean, I would, if that is what I do. Because if I do Musigo in Kigomba or Nyamakima, I don't know, but I would feel we are in a country where we need to see more solutions coming on board. And the argument should be alternatives. If, Lucy, you're giving me today, let's say you're giving me a djembe, you're telling me to go till in a farm, and I'm saying, man, this person has misused you. Afai kukupea jembe, Singwe should come with a tractor and tell me, well, usiende kuvunja mgongo shambani, I'm giving you a tractor. Because I think we need to criticize government in a way that we get gains at the end of the day. Because we risk also being absorbed in the politics of the day and saying, all right, let's argue about the wheelbarrow, the handcut, while the other gentlemen run off safe. Where do you place the issue of collective responsibility?
I think we hold our leaders to account wherever they are. And that is why my sentiments were like that towards the deputy president. Because as an active citizen, I should be able to say that this is what should be happening or not. All right? The reason why I brought up the Youth Development Fund and all the other affirmative action funds that were supposed to be doing these things is already a failure on the part of government. And government includes William Samoei Ruto, because he is a part of it. Right? So for us to wake up and just talk about wheelbarrows, which we can clearly see is populist politics that the deputy president is doing, and which is going to be very detrimental to the young people that are going to be running for office in 2022 with no money. It is going to be problematic. And that, for me, is why I don't agree with what he's doing. Because it's introducing money back to the campaigns. We are in an era where we're trying to talk about the Campaign Financing Act and capping how much, someone should spend under what seat they're running for. And he's introducing something that is that people are trying to find a solution for in another act of parliament. So it is problematic that he's introducing populist politics. He's introducing money politics that is going to be very, very, very hard for a young person like me, who is not, because hustlers are here, they also have classes. They are rich hustlers, they are katikati hustlers.
Even within the rich, the hustlers are also rich.
Exactly. For someone who's not a rich hustler, how will I run for office when the deputy president is giving wheelbarrows and the only thing I can give to the mwananchi is kuuza sera zangu? How?
You look like you have a rejoinder. As we move the next time. Okay?
I think I've really tried to listen to my sister very carefully. And I think I want to revisit the issue of sustainability. And to say the following, that there is no way you can have a conversation around sustainability before you actually understand the scope, the scale, and the challenges, of a particular initiative. And so one could argue that this engagement the deputy president is having with, with people, small-scale business people, is really a desire to understand how is it that their sectors can be better empowered through policy. It is actually a participatory way in which one begins to engender an understanding, of policy and programs meet or good enough, for that kind of sector. And so I want again to submit that in relation to sustainability, there will be a program for sure. I mean, when William Ruto is in power, if he ever gets to power, there will be a very clear, sustainable 5-year, 6-year program focused on these issues. And it will include everybody. It will not be, divisive. It will not target, youth from one area, leaving out youth from another area, etc., etc. So I don't have a problem with sustainability. It will have partners from, from this country and other parts of our country. Secondly, I think sometimes really we don't appreciate what is going on in our country and the role of something like a djembe, my brother Bitog. Part of the challenge we have in our agriculture sector is, for instance, the fact that only 10% of our agriculture is mechanized. Only about 10%. Our mechanization rate is way, way lower now than the mechanization rate of a country like Ethiopia. That's talking about 30, almost 45% of their agriculture is mechanized. That's why when we talk about food production, we still have such low levels of food production. But in order to be able to transition the guys who are using, oxen-drawn, djembes, and who are digging using their djembes, you need to really understand what is going on down there. In order to design a sustainable mechanization program for our country, you need to understand how, these guys who are getting a livelihood from digging, like directly, who are getting an employment from that 1 acre farm, using, a horse-drawn, djembe, how, what do we need to give them in order to give up that practice, and what kind of machines do we want to introduce, that would help our country produce even more food. So the conversation the Deputy President is actually having is one that really looks very closely at both informal settlements within urban areas and rural agriculture, so that we can actually begin to think seriously around coming up with tools and programs that are more responsive, more targeted, as opposed to things that we just conceive of, on our own, in the imagination that they will respond, to the challenges that the Kenyans have, whether it's in commerce, in finance, or whether it's in agriculture.
Alright. Ya debate haiwezi isha, lakini nasikia kwa masla pia kuna matajiri masla na masla na matajiri pia kuna matajiri na matajiri masla. Looks like we have classifications all over. But anyway, wacha tukimbia pale kwa biashara tujengane, alafu tukirudi tunakuja kuchukua masimu. Kuna jamaa tu Ideas Kiptoo Ruta anafanya kampuni yake inaitwa Ultra Eureka Farm. Anasema anauza mambo ya seedlings. Kuna pato hapa anasema naye ameleta maneno yake mengine. Samuel Kena Gata anafanya dairy. Carlos Wanyama anasema kuna kampuni inaitwa A Supplies. Samoe IK kuna kampuni inaitwa Brilliant Paints, na wanasema wako wapi pale off Nairobi Road, Lumumba Avenue, opposite CK Cathedral. Namba yake ni 0743284291. Kama unataka rangi, kimbia kwa Brilliant Paints kwa kampuni ya Samoe IK. Ben Mwao George anasema kuna kampuni inaitwa Silage Chopper. Anatengeneza, I think it's an engineering company. They do silage choppers. As we speak, tuanze kupeana ma silage chopper kwa kulima wa Trans Nzoia, Daktari Singoe. Kuna kampuni ya jamaa wanatengeneza machine za kukata silage. Hizo naona ameita chiptitu hiyo ambao kuna mambo ya jikoni pale. Thai Collection, hiyo ni kampuni ya Lydia Thai. Musin Basil anasema kuna kampuni inaitwa Mohadi Collections, wanauza materials za nguo. Kuna pia Kisaka Emmanuel anasema Kiminini Main Agro Shop, we supply new 90 kg sacks for maize and wheat harvesting. Namba yake ni 0713 930-734. Anasema anauza magunia ya mahindi. Kama unafanya ukulima pale Trans Nzoia, unaweza kimbia pale Kiminini Main Agri Shop upate gunia yako ya mahindi. Robinson Masa anasema the hard disk store, we exclusively deal with data storage media, which includes hard disk drives, solid state drives, flash drives, memory cards and related accessories. We are located at Imenti House. Our business number is 0768-880-269. Hiyo ni kampuni inaitwa the hard disk store, wanafanya mambo ya storage ya data. Frank John Senior anasema my business is helping other businesses grow the effective business accounting and tax solutions. Kama kuna mambo ya ushuru, kulipa ushuru na mambo kama hayo, tafuta jamaa anaitwa Frank John Senior. Ajaka nambari yake. Kaka Kitolo anasema for solar installation and electrical wiring, nambari yake ni 0717-600-087 0717-600-087. Hiyo ni Kaka Kitolo. Anasema kuna kampuni inaitwa Ufalme Engineering Solar. Kuna Kipsang Eliud Mwana Akona Textiles and Industries in a company Textiles and Interiors East Africa Limited. We deal with deco products, sofa and dining set covers. We are located at Nyayo Estate Gate B, Embakasi. We also have offices in Kisumu, Eldoret, Mombasa and Kampala, Uganda. We do free deliveries across East Africa. Nambari yao ni 0785713751. Anasema pia nambari yao iko kwenye WhatsApp. Kama unataka kitu ya kufunika viti na madiko na mambo kama hayo, tafuta jamaa anaitwa Kipsang Eliud Mwana. MC Sakwa anasema premium lamu nuts, anasema clean roasted nuts, salted and spicy, located in Nairobi with free delivery for particular quantities. Anasema nambari yao ni 0721777993 ama 0738151668. By the way, on that note, MC Sakwa, nilete njugu kesho hapa, hizo nuts, nilete nuts kesho hizo za lamu, nilete 1 packet. Tuonje tusikie kunaendaje. Benjamin Njuguna anasema printing and design services, contact 0727616551. Anasema located in Nairobi CBD, Kadada au second floor, room number 207 along Ronangala Street. Hii ni kampuni ambayo inaitwa B Creation. Wanafanya mambo ya design. Kama unataka umbrella pale ya branding, kama unataka t-shirt, kofia, nini, unakimbia kwa kampuni ya Benjamin Njuguna inaitwa B Creation. Mandela Babu anasema kwa kampuni inaitwa K-Fish Community, Kenyan Fish Community. We are located on the ring road next to Pebbles Hotel. We do freshly deep fried fish, package and deliver to our clients' convenience. Contact 0716340739. Kama unataka samaki, tafuta Mandela Babu. Kuna Anthony Tony anasema for PA equipment at affordable rates. Inaitwa Fresh Sounds Events. Wako na makelele pale ya sherehe, kama uko na birthday party, kama uko na saizi tumeanza mambo ya BBI, kama uko na rally pale mtaani, enda utafute sound and PA system kutoka kwa jamaa anaitwa Anthony Tony. Dennis Mashan anasema Farmers Urban Technologies deals in all livestock equipment best in Nairobi near KFA. Contact Dennis and query 0702484229. Huyo Dennis Masharia, mambo ya ukulima. Mkombozi mtetezi anasema beba current all up. Anasema attached our services. We also located at Royce Gardens, Ruiru, Kimbo along Thika Super Highway next to Nips College. Thanks for promoting us last asshole. God bless. Huyo ni jamaa anafanya mambo ya car ya trucks na mambo kama hiyo. Governor Joseph Wamasha anasema Majos Computer Solutions, cyber cafe service and computer repair. Another mambo ya computer. This bill anasema general repair funds. Nimekuwa inbox my number and location for obvious reasons. Wekala hapa jamaa na inbox bwana. This is not the dating platform. Hii mambo ya biashara. Peter Mudama anasema Riverbank Consultants and Landscaping. Mambo ya landscaping, tafuta jamaa anaitwa Peter Mutuma wa Riverbank Landscapes. Mambo ya hema, tafuta Michael Cheng, anapeana hema pale. Mambo ya viatu, tafuta jamaa anaitwa Kevin Owiti, K Alan. Mambo ya printing, office solutions, ICT, furniture, security na mambo kama hayo, tafuta jamaa anaitwa Kili. Mambo ya biashara naona iko mingi hapa, lakini kwa sababu ya wakati wacha tukimbie twende kwa topic ya alafu tukirudi tuchukua masimu. Bunge la Mwenchi, tunaenda kufungua bunge la Mwenchi 0779801010 0779801010. Bunge la Mwenchi iko wazi, nambari ni 0779801010. Unaweza piga simu ili uweze kuchangia mada ambazo ama discussion that we've been having today. You can call in 0779801010. Lazima tunasubiri simu zenu. Tuendeni kwa mambo ya corona. Wamesema wanaanza kurudi kulock county zingine ambazo zinasemekana kumekuwa na corona kwa kibao. WILKISTER, tufunge tusifunge, tunasema fungueni, funga. Watoto waende shule, lakini we are not ready to open the country.
I think it's a risk either way. We close or we don't. This is, you're referring to schools, right? It is a risk either way because the way we as adults would adhere to the COVID-19 guidelines, keep social distance, wear your mask and all this, adults can do it better. But even still, we having a problem, adhering to the same rules. I mean,
are you still washing hands, by the way?
We are. Hata ukitembea hapa chini sahi utaona mask ata. It's not a big deal. Like people, I think people have moved on. They want to leave. They want to do their businesses and all that. But risking the lives of children is where now it becomes a bit of an issue. So I think we really need to be careful. We really need to be careful in how we're handling the opening of schools. And it should not just be a reactionary thing now because we think the world should be moving. I mean, our kids are losing nothing being at home. It is just that there are children now that are exposed to certain risks like sexual and gender-based violence that is now, mounting pressure on government to now put the kids where they think the children are safe. But I think we really need to consider the lives of the kids. If the curve is not flattening as it looks now, please, let us protect our children. That's our tomorrow.
All right. Acha tuchukue simu, nikirudi utaweza kutujibu. Hello, good morning.
Yes, Gerard.
Good morning to you. Who am I speaking to?
I'm speaking with Jimmy Onjema from Topa.
Okay, tuambie dadi.
Yes, I first of all, before I start, say hi to the panelists.
Sikusikii.
Oh,
Unasemaje? Adi. Hello? Yeah, amepotea. Anyway, kwa mashule pia naona there are already 2 cases that have been confirmed. Kuna kesi mbili ambazo zimekonfirmiwa mambo ya shule. Kuna sema Nandi County Health Executive Ruth Koech confirmed cases at Kabote SDS Secondary School in Nandi. The student was taken on an isolation center. Tayari shule hazijafunguliwa, hatujamaliza wiki moja. We already have cases that are coming in. How can we say that we are actually ready to open up the country, to open up schools, but you're not ready to open up the country? Is a question for another day. Yani ni swala nyeti Kenya hii, because we think grown-ups are not ready to operate, but lakini watoto wako tayari kwenda mashule. Hello?
hey.
Yes, habari asubuhi.
Salam.
Aha.
I'm ready when you guys are ready.
We are ready.
Oh, but what I'm hearing is different.
Lakini naona wewe mwenyewe piga usiwe la ukapotea. Alright, you can call in again. Oh, hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Gerald.
Tuambie.
My name is Meshak.
Yes, sir.
I really want to tackle Abraham now.
You not even another day. You want to tackle him now?
Yes, not another day now.
Yeah, proceed.
The problem I have with Abraham is one.
Yes.
And the question is this to Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
From 2013 to 2017,
Mm-hmm.
were there no hustlers? Were people not going hungry? Were these problems not existing in Kenya? And what was this boss doing about them?
Uh-huh.
Because the handshake only came in 2017 after the election, actually 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, his boss was in unison with the president, telling the other side that wanakula nyama, the other one wanalala njaa ama wanameza mate.
Wanameza mate,
so
yeah.
Around that time, were there no Kenyans who needed those wheelbarrows through Wezo Fund and all those other funds that are in government? Must we get them from someone's personal pocket?
Uh-huh.
The other thing.
Yes.
It is during the time his boss was in office and was being listened to that all the companies that would have employed people who would have taken their cars now to the car wash where the machines can be used, all the companies went down in Kenya. The Uchumis, the supermarkets, banks, and all the rest. During that time, what did his boss do to make sure? Because to me, economy is not where the wheelbarrow is. The driver of the economy is a middle class who will take his car to the car wash and then the car wash machine can be used. But what the deputy president is doing is giving 10 car wash machines at a place where there is one car. So who are they going to wash their car? If a middle class like me has lost a job during Ruto's tenure in office, and I'm not building, what is the wheelbarrow going to do to the other person? Because I'm supposed to be the one paying that young person to use that wheelbarrow to get money. So we are going to end up with 20 car wash machines and one car in that area. And then you are here telling me that it is okay if I can't give wheelbarrow, the other person should give alternative. That's a very big argument, especially with someone who is right number 2. He himself has told Kenyans that I am not a fool. I am number 2. I am the deputy president of this country. Then when we are tackling now that particular position, he is again saying, his people are again telling us, Ruto is just by name. He is not in government. And we know when he started being out of government. It is just the other day. So, the last one. When there was a time for everybody to give their opinion on BBI, he mobilized his team, whether it is from Abraham's advice or anybody else's advice, and they stayed away from that team and they did not give their opinion on what they think is ailing the country and how it could be solved. When other people have given their opinion, they are now on board tackling. Is that even helping anybody in the country? Because there was time for everybody. If another person says, let us create the first time, if you think that will not solve our problem, give us what you think will solve our problem. If another person says, let us create premier position, maybe it will make other tribes feel comfortable. If you think that is not working for Kenya, what is your opinion? What do we do? They are not saying anything around that. All they are doing is being obsessed with whatever Raila and Uhuru say so that they can tackle against it. Is that even helpful in this country?
Okay.
I mean, Ruto should not be recruiting Kenyans to hate Raila and Uhuru. I am not going on that side. I should be taken to a path where my problem is going to be solved. Not simply help me hate these people because they are planning not to give the presidency in 2017 to 2022. Thank you.
All right. What was your name again, please?
Meshach Odede.
Meshach Odede. Asante. Umesema you're not boarding. Aya, asante Meshach. You've been tackled, daktari.
That's a hard tackle.
That's a pretty hard tackle. Nimeona pia daktari yenyewe amekuwa akipiga simu, alikuwa anasema anataka kuchangia mambo ya class, the class politics. Daktari Ojwang, you can call in if you're ready. Msikia amepiga alafu akasema I'm ready when you guys are ready. Is that our doctors? That is all right. Daktari, kama uko tayari utatupigia utuambie mambo yako kunaendaje. Nimeona pia kuna majamaa ambao wako kwenye laini nataka kuzungumza na sisi. Acha tusikie. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yes, we are here for you. Daktari, alafu uzime. Tunashukuru umetuweka kwa TV lakini zima kwanza kidogo.
Okay, sawa. Yes. A wonderful show.
Thank you.
By very great minds. Dr. Korir is there. He has put me into the deep end on the issue of social justice. And the other youth advocate, a very worthy debater. I wanted to ask her especially because her sentiment that when we talk of class consciousness, then that will really galvanize the poor. Will she rather we have false consciousness? The false consciousness means that you don't see the poverty, you don't see the gap, because that is what we have now. So either we have people who are aware of the disparity, or we have people who have false consciousness who probably count themselves among the rich, yet we know that the economy, as she ably put it, even with the case of a friend who came from college who was not able to get a job, that there is a lot of disparity. So I don't know whether she will advocate for false consciousness. And because I'm looking at, it is not the poor who are marginalizing or who will marginalize the rich. It is the poor or it's the rich who have already criminalized and penalized the poor. If you look at where the rich or Nairobi take their garbage is in Dandora, that is somebody's neighborhood. So the idea that the poor will be conscious will then falls into they need to be invisible. They need to be invisible. They need to not have a conscious or have a false conscious. And with that, then they can be managed better. Because, in fact, what we have in Kenya, in my view, and I've had the speaker, she has been active even on the issue of social justice, is that we have a situation where the rich are the ones who have marked the poor. It's not that high example that people will now stop somebody with a car. It is the rich who close their window when they see the poor.
So there's already marginalization.
Who have their path closer when they see the poor. And it's the rich who assume that every person who is poor will steal from them. And as a youth advocate, especially with a very strong story of a friend who is selling a boiled eggs with a master, will she rather that when somebody pass, assume that person should not be class conscious, that I have masters, I should be doing better things, but here I am because of the gap between the rich and poor, I'm not able to
apply myself to what I need to. You know, we have the biggest economy in East Africa, yet we are the country with the biggest disparity. If you look at our constitution, it's talking of social justice, leaving no one behind. It's talking of marginalization and the vulnerable. So what is hatred about that? She is very smart. She knows about the social development goals. She knows goal 17 is about partnership. How do we achieve horizontal and vertical equity? Through partnership. Let us partner with private. Let us partner with government. Let us partner with the guys who donated the corona things that were taken. Those are how we achieve partnership. So is the argument that it is solely government purpose and people cannot participate, whether it's an individual, into realizing the reduction of poverty? You know, because when we see Bill Gates donating, we talk of the charity and our development partners, even if they are individual, Belinda Gates. But when an individual donates in Africa, then we are saying that is bribery. Isn't that kind of a double standard? So as I finish, I just, you know, I'm looking at it in terms of the invisibility of the poor. It is the rich who are portraying the poor as threat to security. As already there is a lot of laws that are governing around the issue of poverty. Their hustles have become really criminal. If you look at a lot of laws, ICJ have come with a whole list of all the laws that we don't need, and they're actually policing poverty and criminalizing poverty in Kenya. So if she is class conscious, then she could not be arguing that, you know, these people, if they are aware that they are poor. When somebody walk with a car, in an example, don't I know I'm taking foot 11, I'm walking, and that person has a car? What is it in me that now telling me that, you know, you are walking and the other person has a car and there is a class consciousness? How does that incite violence rather than bringing the serious conversation? Finally, I don't know, but I thought it is a good virtue that somebody can relate with the powerful and mighty, but also relate with the poor and hand them a cup of water. Is that a bad thing that, for example, Deputy President can easily relate with a policymaker, and then we can critique what he is not doing or doing up there? And she has brought a very good point that we want to, you are part of that government, and when things don't go well, we want you to do the policy. But then the canvas does not directly mean that we cannot at the same time meet the hand a cup of water and donate when he wants to donate, just because the policies are not going the way we want them to go. Finally, on BBI, I think, you know, there's a story of a king who, after he slayed all the dragons and finished the dragon, he became depressed because there was no more dragon to slay. And so he had to create more dragons.
To keep him busy.
I think these BBI proponents are doing. You know, you have to create new dragons. I mean, what do we slay? We have 2010 constitution that is almost perfect, that we are not following. And since they don't want to fall into depression, they create new dragons to slay. That is the BBI. Thank you.
That's quite interesting. So we need more dragons to keep us busy as politicians. But when I also take power, I'll create another dragon that we're going to deal with as a country, because it looks like we need a cycle, more cycles of dragons to slay. And those are quite deep sentiments from Dr. I think Dr. is also being a lawyer, has participated in terms of social justice and pushing for the social space of Kenyans. And so I don't know, but I don't know what your feeling is. First of all, you are tackled. Maybe. Yeah,
let me take the tackle. By saying the following. I think if I listen to Adede well, he was asking, his question was about timing. Why this emphasis on hustlers right now? What they are not.
Daktari, can you allow me to pick one call? Just one call, then we finish up. This is the last call, tafadhali. Tunafunga bunge, baadaye simu. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Gerald. How are you?
Salama sana. Who am I speaking to?
This is Samba.
Oh, Samba. Tuambie dadi wakili.
Unaendelea habari ya Wilkister?
Poa sana.
Amesmile hapa ni kama amejua unaenda kumtaka wala makunaendaje.
Mdosi wangu Singoi, habari ya leo?
Poa bro, poa.
Mimi nilikuwa Kobo, sio barabara ni mbaya kutoka Kitale.
ni rough sana.
Hiyo barabara kutoka Kitale ukipita na Manjalala ukienda mpaka Kobo suko
kabisa.
Ni barabara mbovu. Took close to 3 hours on a stretch of less than 30 kilometers.
It's sad, yes.
I hope to change your story. Now, I need to raise 2 issues. One, the issue of BBI. As Wilkister said earlier on, hatuna upungufu wa shida hii Kenya. I think we have so many challenges, and we don't think that BBI is this ultimate solution that we have been looking for. BBI is not going to be like Hollywood. And a constitutional moment, then it cannot what? How many give it not? Why are we making the constitutional change? On constitutional changes journey, it has always been people driven. So what has changed this time round that now it looks like it's leaders driven rather than and the second issue is that somebody was commenting that Wilkister is very emotional when it comes to youth empowerment. I feel what Wilkister is going to. We have brothers, we have sisters, we have cousins who are highly educated with very good skills, but they cannot be able to get jobs. And when just somebody stands up and says that our solution is in BBI, when we don't have basic jobs for people, we don't have medication in hospitals, the roads are terrible, and yet currently we have a framework of addressing all these issues. I think the problem with our country is that we do things from the elitist way. We are building an express highway from Westlands to JKIA when we don't have water in Kibra, when we don't have medication in a dispensary in Bogete, in Kisi, when the road from Kitale to Kobos is terrible. So where exactly are our priorities? And that is why I'm saying that start managing this country from bottom upwards. The Mamamboga problems, the Mkokoteni guy problems, the Pikipiki guy problem, the guys who are currently being rained from Kibra to industrial area to look for jobs, their problems are very basic. They are education, water, medication, infrastructure. But when we think about the elitist problems of having somebody sit in the UN Security Council, having an express highway, I don't know from where to where, having an SGR, then we lose it as a country. As I said before, Gerald, in managing a country, we should make it simple, like when you started life, Gerald. When you moved into your own house, you didn't buy a smart TV at the first instance. You bought a mattress and a duvet and probably a hot water kettle and a jiko. You started downwards. By the time you have come to buy a TV, then you have everything. You can't move into a blank house and then you buy a smart TV or buy a free.
I know people who can actually do that. So don't underestimate people.
And that is the challenge we're having. As a country, we are buying a smart TV when we don't have a mattress to sleep on. We are doing the SGR when the roads are terrible everywhere. So, leaders, can we please sit back and mind the people? Let us not make development of this country to be an elitist affair, that we only look for affairs of a very few people on the top and we ignore the masses.
All right. Asante sana. Asante sana wakili. Na pole kwa barabara ya huko Kibos.
Hiyo barabara in fact ambia Korir kunituliza nitafuta ninunulie chai. Hiyo barabara ni mbaya.
Done.
It was a punishment on its own.
Haina shida. Nashukuru mkuu na siku njema.
Pole sana dadi. Kuwa na siku njema. Thank you. Tumefunga bunge. Wacha tuende kwa kazi ya marudiano. tackles, you need to tackle back those people who have tackled you, tujue kunaenda namna gani na uende utengeneze barabara bwana. Mheshimiwa
Mkinichagua sindio? So if I had Odede right, alikuwa anauliza kuhusu kwa nini hivi sasa focus ya deputy president ni kuhusu mambo ya hustlers. Okay? And he has not interacted enough with the work that the DP has done. If there's somebody who has a very clear record, if there's somebody who has a very clear record of engaging with the grassroots, in terms of providing support to communities, small and medium entrepreneurs, etc., it's the DP. For example, and these, by the way, Odede, he did it before the end of the first term, when he did a big fundraiser with the governor of Kajiado, wakauza ng'ombe nyingi sana, and they raised money for people to buy NHIF, to access NHIF. Okay? He did that in Kajiado, he did that in Arok. All right? That's a way in which he's actually responding to a very particular challenge. People want to access healthcare, but they do not have the wherewithal to be able to, as a group, be able to have NHIF. And so he has done that, and he's done that in many other places. And it's trying to ensure that, no one is left behind in terms of access to health. The big program, and talking again about sustainability, something that myself, WILKISTER has raised, the out of Northern Kenya right now, the biggest program, the Northeastern Development Initiative, NEDI, which is a World Bank funded program, was actually initiated by his office. It's a program. It's a 100 billion project that has all sorts of components, from education to water to road. That Modagashe road that is now under construction is being done under the aegis of this program, which the deputy president negotiated. So it's not as if he's now suddenly found himself, trying to ratchet up these rhetoric around hustlership. But he's always really been focused on how do we bring the margins to the mainstream. These peripheries of our country, these restive populations, whether they're young people without jobs, or pastoralists up north. How do we ensure that all of us are able to be, to call ourselves proudly citizens, so that watu wanatoka Turkana wasifike Kitale waseme sawa wamefika Kenya, lakini all of us can feel that we are one people. And so if you want to really deconstruct the hustlership mentality, it is a whole idea of how do we bring the peripheries to the mainstream, and how do we make the peripheries the organizing principle around our development logic right now. And that's also what informed LAPSET. If you look at LAPSET, it's about opening up another corridor up north in Kenya, from Lamu all the way to Isiolo, so that we don't just concentrate here in Nairobi, so that some of our population, our young people who are growing, and our population numbers that are growing by the year, some of those guys can move up north and get more opportunities. So it's really opening up the country for all of us. So my submission is, he didn't start it today. Maybe there is a lot more emphasis on it. There is more visibility to it. There is more drama and razzmatazz around it. But really the core of it, the core message, it's something he's been doing. I was talking to somebody from Wajir yesterday about some work he was doing with madrasa teachers in Wajir, for example. And they did a big fundraising to support madrasa teachers. Because as you know, there has been an education crisis in northern Kenya with a lot of insecurity. Teachers from TSC moved out. And so the community began to offer to meet that gap. The DP actually did a big fundraiser in Wajir, brought madrasa teachers, and ensured therefore that young children can be able to access education, among others. BBI, Adede also asks, why did he not give his views? Again, I think it boils down to what we said. And the view that DP has held and has been consistent on this is, can we find ways of implementing the Constitution first? given everything else, given the challenges that we have, is there a way in which we can fully and faithfully and effectively implement the current constitution? And if there are gaps, if peradventure we do find gaps based, on an audit, if we actually did an audit of the current constitution, where are the actual gaps? A scientific audit, if those gaps can be teased out, and we have a process through which we can identify that these are gaps that can be ameliorated by way of amending the law. Other gaps can be ameliorated by way of amending the constitution, etc., etc. So the DP's starting premise is, let's implement the current compact. It's good. It's progressive. It has quite a lot in there, including ways in which we could address the gender disparities in terms of representation. If we thought critically, we can be able to find a very creative law for ensuring that we can still have women as part of our polity. I want to thank Samba for his views. He was spot on. That road from now a place called Maridadi to Kobos is hell. I agree. The infrastructure gaps that you see in our country, and especially in Kitale, this is again one of the most productive areas of our country. But these farmers, with all their big farms, cannot get their produce to the market under these weather conditions, under the current climate, change situation. Corn is rotting in the farms, vegetables are rotting in the farm. They don't have roads. And yet, when you look at our investment in roads over the last couple of years, they have expanded exponentially. But there is a disproportionate investment in roads in some areas, while other areas are being left off. That doesn't need a constitutional amendment. That doesn't need BBI. It just needs, political goodwill. And those problems can be fixed, in my view, with good political goodwill. I also, appreciate the comments around, by Dr. Ojwang around policing poverty, and it is true. I think it's really unfortunate, because especially when you walk in our rural areas, forget now about urban areas. When you walk in our rural areas, the power that the police wields, and the way they use it, to abuse and to harass people who are trying to make a living in the streets of Kitale or in the streets of Busia and in other places. There is really a sense in which we have criminalized poverty and we've criminalized small enterprise. Is there a way in which, rather than criminalize people who are trying to make a living, to eke out a living, is there a way in which, in fact, we can facilitate and support them? And that's what the hustlership, mindset is really all about.
All right. WILKISTER, you need to respond to your question. Actually, you respond to it. Ojwang has followed up with another question. He's wondering why you have a problem with the hustler and whatever, the poor and the rich activities, or actually agitation, but you don't have a problem with the agitation of gender. Like now women are saying we also need equal opportunities with men. That's still a class. That's actually a class division. He's wondering why you have a problem with poor and rich, but you don't have a problem with women fighting against men.
Women, young people, people living with disability are classified under the Constitution as special interest groups. All right? So the Constitution has them like that. Right? There's something he said in his closing remarks. He said, we always introduce dragons and slay these dragons. What that means in the Kenyan political context is this, that I will introduce a problem and become the messiah that wants to solve this problem, right? I want to take you back to 2007. I was in high school. When the war started, I was somewhere around Kondele, by the way. I was totally unaware of my tribe, but it became apparent in that moment that I was more Luo than ever. In fact, a passerby on the road told me, msichana ingia ndani, your light skin looks like you are Kikuyu. Okay? I had to rush back into the house. I was going to high school in Coast. Coast had resumed normalcy. People were going to school. I had to travel from Kisumu to Mombasa through Molo and the other places that were hotspots. And it became apparent in the bus. I have never seen people cry when they're about to travel. It became apparent that you are either Luo, you're Kikuyu, you're Kalenjin, you're Kisi, and all that. So when we get to a point where a certain tribe comes in and asks you a question and you're not able to respond in that language, you're in deep trouble. Actually, you're facing potential death. What happened in 2007 was we weaponized ethnicity. And it is not something that started, it did not just erupt. It was brainwashing. It was putting this into your minds that as you're organizing politically, you have to know that you're organizing as Luo, and you have to know that you're organizing as Kikuyu, so that when someone summons all, in Luo we say Juogi, from your tribe, you feel like you need to actually step up and fight another person from another community. Case in point, if we take the class conversation and start in putting into people's minds that you are poor, and he said something that actually wrote it. Most of us don't know the disparities and inequality that exist. You want to tell me leo ordinary mwenye ako pale mtaani hajui ye ni odi? We know, daktari, poor people are aware of their situation. And by the way, let us not even pretend like poverty is something that is far-fetched. It is one medical bill. You're one medical bill away from poverty. We are living, I don't know how many Kenyans today live below $1 a day. So we can't say that people are unaware of their economic status. In as much as we are having this conversation, my problem is let us not weaponize classes for political gain. It is dangerous. We've seen the 2007 elections. We saw what happened in Rwanda. And to date, by the way, the Rwandese have only one tribe. If we are trying to foster unity, if our leaders really are trying to foster unity, and by the deputy president, the president, they're all symbols of national unity. They need to act as symbols of national unity. We do not need to be divided along those lines right now as Kenyans. We need proactive legislation, policies, programs, and things that are going to make it better for people living below $1 a day to rise to the next place, to take their children to school, to afford proper health care, to be able to live under a roof. And, you know, Article 10 has all these things on the national values. If you allow me read Article 10, just to make it clear.
As we close.
The national values and principles of governance include patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy and participation of the people. Human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination and protection of the marginalized. Underline, protection of the marginalized. Good governance, integrity, transparency and accountability. And underline, sustainable development. I rest my case.
Yeah, talk of the day, Daktari, as we close.
But that's the point, WILKISTER. And I have heard you very carefully. I've heard you very carefully. And it's true, 2007 was the lowest moment, you know, for our country. And we came up with several programs to address you know, some of the challenges that led to 2007, including the new constitution. One of the most critical reports that emanated from that process was the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report, which lies, you know, somewhere in Parliament after millions of shillings, you know, was expended towards that process. If we were really serious about addressing some of the contradictions of our society, the TJRC report is there to be implemented. Why is it not being implemented? Why are the other reports like the Ndungu report not being implemented? We've had all these reports. So it is a bit simplistic to then argue that we can fix the country via another round of constitutional amendments. You have rightly said Article 10 in our current constitution. Have we actually implemented Article 10 faithfully yet? I will talk on, in relation to the protection of marginalized communities, which is a value, a national value. To what extent can the state stand and say, we have protected marginalized communities? I can tell you for a fact that marginalized communities in many counties live worse off today than they were even under the previous constitution, which is a shame. And that is because we really haven't paid attention to what the constitution itself stipulates. We have not implemented it faithfully. So that's my view as well.
Okay. So should I take that as your tackle of the day?
Oh, okay. So my tackle of the day is that I think, listening again to this conversation, I think Kenya is caught up in what I would call a dictatorship of no alternatives. Because what we have in our political setup right now is a set of choices which in my view are not necessarily the best of choices. The question is, why don't ordinary Kenyans who are serious about changing our country, why can't they step up? It is time for Kenyans of goodwill, Kenyans who believe in Article 10 of our current constitution, to pay the ultimate price. Not so that we can deliver any of the big names to State House or whoever, but really so that we can get our country back to ourselves. Thank you.
All right. Your tackle of the day, WILKISTER.
So mine goes to the citizenry. Let us not sit and wait for civil society to go on the streets. No double standards. When there's a national issue, come out of your house. If you need to hold a placard, hold it. Support genuine causes. All these people online who are purporting to be in support with Nigeria, you're hypocrites. You're not supporting your own, but pretend to support people outside of this country. And to the young person who may be a beneficiary of the small handouts being given, the small quote-unquote development, economic development programs. I cannot tell you not to take it because I know as a young person you need it. You need to make money for yourself. You need to fend for yourself. But I will tell you this. When you be going to the elections, think about the leader that will give you sustainable development. Pesa chukua, wheelbarrow chukua. Lakini ukienda kupiga kura, think critically about the leader you're putting into office so that you do not have another leader who will come and sell you hot air and give you, I don't know whether it will be pence next time or lesos, so that you feel like that leader is really solving your problem. So think, ile unapewa chukua. Maordinary wanajijua. The young people kwa mtaa. Ukipewa chukua. Kazi mtaani fanya. Fend for yourself, but think carefully as you elect your leader.
All right. The same note is something I want to give me a very short comment on. The president yesterday in his speech about the youth, he said as he concluded his speech, the President Kenyatta made a passionate appeal to the youth of Kenya to embrace a positive outlook on national matters. If our attention, quoting the president, if our attention goes to the bad and the ugly, all energy will flow to the negative and will become a nation of angry and disillusioned people. But the young people who will embrace the positive and possible will emerge as heroes and makers of things. A good starting point for our young people is to look for a problem and solve it. If you solve a problem, heroism and success will naturally follow up. That is a quote from the president. That's a time when, WILKISTER, you're calling for the young people to uprise. What is your note on that? Because that is what came from the president, actually.
I agree with those sentiments. Young people should rise in that sense. But
he's not saying you rise. He's saying you guys, you need to chill. We don't want negative energy.
No,
You look
he
for
said-
problems to fix.
I think that's your interpretation, because he said focus your energy into the positives, right? So young people are focusing their energies into the positives. By the way, the first responders on the ground during the COVID-19 period were young people. They were awarded just the other day. There were CBOs run by young people. Young people were getting money to distribute food and all these kind of things. The MCAs, the MPs, the governors were nowhere to be found. So that is an example of how young people can channel positive energy and solve problems. So young people, please, do solve the problems.
All right. In Nigeria, they are solving it proper, and they are not. The government is not taking very lightly. Thank you guys for joining us this morning for the 21st edition of the Tackle. That is 21st October 2020 on a Wednesday. Asante sana kwa kuja kwa wale tacklers ambao wamekuwa online. We love you guys, and thank you for always tuning in and sharing and actually participating in the program. We love you, and we hope to see you again tomorrow. The Tackle. This is the Tackle, and the Tackle ends now. Bye bye.